Obama's giving up. It's over. Obama said, yeah, on Kamala.
Oh.
Yeah, he's giving up. Scratch me real quick before we switch.
I don't know what I thought she was about to
Obama's giving up. He's giving on Kamala.
Oh.
It's over.
Wow.
Black people ain't going for her like they thought they were.
This is interesting.
Watch it. And then we got some other clips that are going to go on.
Okay.
Is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
That's absolutely right. He's well aware. It's done, and the reason why is things like this.
And then also from that video, I started getting a lot of messages, like to my Instagram, from like actual like aircraft commanders, like squadron commanders.
No kidding.
I had a squadron commander from North Carolina reach out to me. They had to load a C-17 full of supplies just to take a photo op for Kamala. And they never sent the bird.
Wait a minute, what?
They loaded an entire C-17 full of supplies for the hurricane victims just for Kamala to go there, take a photo, take a video, and they never sent the C-17.
Oh,
it was just a full. Yeah, that was a National Guard, North Carolina National Guard unit. That was a 06 that reached out to me. And then I had another.
He reached out to you to tell you that they did a photo op and with the intention of never sending.
It was just a photo op. And then also from that video, I started getting a lot of messages, like to my Instagram, from like actual like aircraft commanders, like squadron commanders.
Yeah, that's.
Wow.
Yeah, and so these are reasons. Let me show you another one. You know, so she goes on the snake on who is it? Colbert, I think that's his name. I don't watch his show, but she go on there talking about word salads, and this is another reason why she has the lady has no conversation to talk to America. Nothing. Didn't answer the question. What are you going to be different? You just going to your talking points that you have memorized in your head. I know Kamala from PragerU. She also covers some of these lies. We might not do the whole clip of it. We're going to do some of this. So let's look at this. Mm-hmm. People are tired of being lied to. Nobody's not being.
So I'm sure we're all keeping
year.
up with this year's election, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And you know what I've been seeing a lot of? Kamala Harris lies. She goes on this debate stage and lies, or this interview and lies. She sits across from Oprah and lies. And you know what? We're trying to keep up. We're trying to fact check. But I think we need to keep all the lies and fact checks in one place. So today's video is all about fact checking Kamala Harris. And she lies so much that we're probably going to have to make a part 2. So let's get into it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
All right, guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. And I think this video is going to be a shareable one. If you know somebody who's a fan of Kamala Harris or plans on supporting her, maybe let them check out the many lies she's told on the campaign trail. If you know somebody who's not a fan of Kamala Harris, maybe they need all the fact checks in one spot so they can keep up to date with all the lies she's telling. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. Now, interestingly enough, Kamala Harris has been on a bit of a media blitz as of late, and she recently appeared on The View, where she was asked if she would have done anything differently when compared to Joe Biden these past 4 years. This was her response.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Now, funnily enough, this is Kamala Harris actually fact-checking herself, as she's been running this entire campaign on this idea of transformation and change, that she wasn't going to be an extension of the presidency that we saw with Joe Biden. But it seems like a Freudian slip here on The View, where she confirms it's going to be a lot like what we've seen with President Joe Biden. And we all know what that looks and feels like. And Kamala Harris is quite a flip-flopper on her stances, and this one is going to be happening in record time. She appeared on The View in the afternoon, then hit a late-night show that evening interesting. And this is what she said about her presidency and what politicians non-answer. And you'll find that if you go through Kamala Harris's interviews and when she's asked about changes she's going to make or how she's going to come up with solutions to problems, she gives this same word salad answer every time. Americans are ambitious. We're optimistic. We have dreams.
Yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been.
But she doesn't talk about how she's going to make those dreams take place. And even if she did have solutions to our problems or ways for us to chase our dreams and be more aspirational here in the United States, because that's how we Americans are, you can't really trust that she's going to even stick to her original answer. Kamala Harris is known to flip-flop on any given occasion, on any given topic. She sort of licks her finger, sticks it out, and moves her answer in whichever way the wind is blowing. And today we're going to go through some of her flip-flop answers, starting with taking your guns away. In our most recent 2024 presidential debate, Kamala Harris said this about taking people's guns away.
Then this business about taking everyone's guns away, Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Somebody needs to practice what they preach and stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. Less than a week later, Kamala Harris tweeted out this picture. Congress must renew the assault weapons ban. Ban assault weapons. She's also said this when asked about her gun control agenda.
Your gun control agenda? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. But I mean, listen, I don't think we lack for great ideas. As I've said many times, we've been having great ideas for decades. The problem is that Congress has not had the courage to act. And that is why, from the beginning, I have said, my agenda includes attempting to get Congress to act, but if they don't within the first 100 days of my administration, I'm going to take executive action. Because what we need is action.
You heard it from the horse's mouth. She will take executive action to have your guns taken away. And funnily enough, years ago in a Democratic primary debate, Joe Biden criticized Kamala Harris for this stance and said it was unconstitutional.
Your first 100 days, including banning imports of AR-15 assault weapons.
That's right.
President Obama, after Sandy Hook, more than 23 executive actions, and yet here we all are today. In recent days, former Vice President Biden has said about executive orders, some really talented people are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the Vice President have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the Senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional.
Okay.
And yes,
She's reiterated her stance on taking guns away on Jimmy Fallon's late night show.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote assault weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that idea not go against fundamentally the Second Amendment?
Yeah, great question. I do believe that we need to do buybacks, and I'll tell you why.
And this is all very interesting because in many an interview recently, Kamala Harris has openly spoken about the fact that she owns a Glock that she's used on many occasions. Let's hear her on 60 Minutes say exactly that.
She owned a 50 Glock with a switch on it.
What kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time.
Here's another clip of her saying something similar, and for some reason she gets deeply uncomfortable when asked to explain any further her relationship with this Glock that she owns.
Well, real quick, have you shot a gun?
Yes, I have.
Well, tell us about the last time.
No.
No, but do you like hunt or like what do you do?
I'm a good marksman. Yes, I have shot a gun many times.
You're a good marksperson with a pistol or a rifle?
A pistol. And I'm not, that's it. I'm not going any further with this.
Concealed weapon permit?
I'm not going any further with this.
I wonder why.
So why won't you explain what you use the gun for,
She
why
think
you
laughing
have
through
it,
it just
you don't
ends
want
it.
to talk about whether or not you have a weapons permit for the firearm. That's really interesting.
It
And it's
is.
so weird that we're suddenly hearing about this Glock because when Kamala Harris was a district attorney in San Francisco, she promoted banning handguns. And I'm not the only one who's suspicious about this. Many have asked her to prove that she has a registered weapon, and we also have this article out of New York Post. Let's read the headline. Kamala Harris says she owns a Glock despite supporting handgun bans in San Francisco, prompting speculation it's unregistered. Will we ever find out the truth there? I'm gonna guess not. And even so, it's an inconsistent opinion considering that she supported handgun bans, but let's move on. In her 2024 presidential debate, Kamala Harris said she had no intention of banning fracking.
I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States.
This is really interesting considering we have this video.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
So either Kamala Harris actually does want to ban fracking, or she's so open-minded and so willing to change her heart based on the things she hears.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, how can we ever hold her to anything that she says ever?
You can't.
Moving on, in regard to our active duty military, Kamala Harris said this on debate night. And let's make sure you guys see the soldier at the beginning of this video.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world the first time this century. What? But let's understand.
So where the are we right now?
Is there nothing that Mrs. Kamala Harris won't lie about? The answer is yes. Moving on to immigration. In a recent interview with 60 Minutes, Kamala Harris was asked about her immigration stance. Their administration has currently been working on the immigration problem. You know, the immigration problem that they created by rolling back Trump policies. And here was the prevailing narrative on the left. We had a border bill. It was going to solve the issue that we created. I think they leave that last part out. And Trump killed the bill. He made sure that it didn't go through. He made sure that the problem at our southern border persisted. The problem that he had largely solved, interestingly enough. They also leave out the fact that this bill had hundreds of billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine and Israel.
It was
and only 17% of the funding that was packed into this bill was actually going to be used for the southern border. But let's run a video and do a little bit of a fact check.
You need to set the record straight about the Senate bill and actually H.R. 2. When the Senate bill was actually published, I remember I was at a dinner Sunday night when it came out, when the text came out. I read the text of the Senate bill. Many members in the House read the text of the Senate bill. Members contacted Speaker Johnson, and we were very clear. There is no way the Senate bill should get a vote in the House because it is a terrible piece of legislation that will not secure the southern border. House Republicans have passed border security measures, H.R. 2. We did it more than a year ago. Has Chuck Schumer brought it up for even debate or a vote in the Senate? No, he has not. Has the White House decided to reach out to the Speaker Johnson to debate and deliberate or negotiate or compromise on H.R. 2 and its elements to secure the southern border? No, they have not. They're in charge. In the Senate and in the White House, they've done nothing except a bill that couldn't even make it out of the Senate. So I think it's important to set the record straight. By the way, House Republicans weren't going to vote for that bill, and that was before Donald Trump even made his view known on the Senate compromise bill. We were already against it when the bill text came out because it's a trash bill. Now, moving on.
So all of a sudden, Kamala Harris cares about the border, and she wants to solve the issue, and she's working on it now, even though she had years to do so. It's interesting that around election time, people start caring about things that they've put no effort into whatsoever, even though she is the border czar. But it's not surprising considering Kamala Harris gave this answer when asked about visiting the border in the past.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
Right.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
I'll let that clip speak for itself.
Right.
All right, on to other lies. Here's Kamala Harris talking to her Michigan constituents, saying she's not going to tell them what car to drive.
And Michigan, let us be clear. Contrary to what my opponent is suggesting, I will never tell you what kind of car you have to drive.
What? Yeah, we don't want to
And that's
electric
interesting
one.
because Senator Kamala Harris co-sponsored the Zero Emission Vehicles Act of 2019, which would effectively ban gas vehicles by 2040. But I guess that bill just fell out of a coconut tree.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
And I guess we need to remind Kamala Harris that she exists in the context of all in which she's lived and all of what came before. Because we have the receipts from before. Another recent stop on her media blitz has been the Call Her Daddy podcast hosted by Alex Cooper, where she said this on the topic of abortion.
I do want to clarify something. In the debate, former President Trump claimed that some states are executing babies after birth. Can you just clarify?
That is not happening anywhere in the United States. It is not happening, and it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie that he is suggesting that, can you imagine? Can you imagine? He is suggesting that women in their 9th month of pregnancy are electing to have an abortion? Are you
people already
kidding?
said
That
it.
is,
It's already
that
been
is
proven.
so outrageously inaccurate, and it's so insulting.
So yeah, Donald Trump made a bold claim that babies are being killed after birth. Is the claim true though? Let's check it out. Tim Walz repealed Minnesota law protecting babies born after failed abortions. 5 babies died in Minnesota after they were born alive due to a failed induced abortion in 2021. And there are other stories detailing this complication that can occur when you have a failed abortion, the baby is born alive, and in some states the doctor is not then obligated to give medical care to that child, resulting in death. So yes, it may sound extreme, but it does in fact happen. Also on the topic of abortion on this podcast, she brought up the story of Amber Thurman, a woman who died after a botched abortion. Let's watch the clip.
Unfortunately, we have these real life names. We have these horrific moments that these people are losing their lives, right? We have a woman named Amber Thurman who died in Georgia because the abortion bans in that state, the doctors were too afraid to treat her. I know that you spoke to her family. What was that conversation like?
It was heartbreaking, Alex. It was heartbreaking.
If you want the true story of Amber Thurman, I did a whole video on this if you want great detail, but I'll give you a short story here. Amber Thurman traveled out of her state to receive an abortion. She was late for that appointment, ended up being given abortion pills. She took those abortion pills and ended up having complications, specifically that there was still fetal tissue in her uterus that needed to be removed. This is perfectly legal in the state of Georgia where she resides, and there's no evidence to suggest that doctors were scared about performing this DNC on her due to abortion laws in the state. Amber Thurman died of an infection and a failure to perform a DNC. She did not die because of abortion laws, yet Kamala Harris continues to run with the lie. And it must not be skipped over that Kamala Harris is extending the same lie to the family of Amber Thurman. Can you imagine the pain and the hurt of losing your daughter, your niece, your aunt, and then being told by somebody who's running for president that it's due to abortion laws when that is in fact not the case? And it's all because she wants to paint a specific picture of her opponent, Donald Trump, and she will stop nowhere in trying to paint this man in a negative light. She even tries to attach him to Project 2025.
Heard me say before, he is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting him back in the White House are extremely serious. Extremely serious. Just Google Project 2025.
And that would be a really heavy-hitting point if Trump had anything to do with Project 2025. In fact, on several occasions, Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025 and says, I have nothing to do with everything that's going on and with the papers that they are writing up. In fact, Project 2025 and plans like it built out by the Heritage Foundation have been around for decades, actually predating Donald Trump's involvement in politics. In fact, here's a video from the former director of Project 2025 saying Trump has nothing to do with what we're doing here.
You know, the breaking news is Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Sure, a lot of us have worked in the admin and came together, but this started long before he even announced for president.
And the lies about Donald Trump don't stop there. On debate night, she brought up the very fine people quote from Donald Trump and essentially insinuated that Donald Trump was complimenting neo-Nazis and white nationalists. But let's look at the actual quote.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
And this has been fact-checked on several occasions by several publications. And let's move on from Trump and bring us to where we're at now with hurricane.
So we're going to stop it right there.
Again and again and again.
Lies after lies.
Again
after
and
lies
again.
after lies.
And that little part that she was saying with keeping it in the context, living in the context of the time that is in, that ties. And see, people think she's, you know, completely stupid, but she's not.
No,
she may be lax when it comes to strict policy and having a plan for that, but when it comes to the overall agenda, she's very aware of it, because that goes back into the what has been unburdened by what's been unburdened. Whatever that quote is, it ties into that.
Yep.
How what was is where you at, but where they trying to take you is not where you gonna want to be. Pretty much. So go back and look up the quote. Look at to who the original quote, who says this quote specifically, where the quote came from, because she says it over and over and over. What does that mean? That means to the people who knows what that means and who supports what goes on behind that quote are very aware. And when she said that last part, I was like, oh, it ties into the quote that she means that you're trying to live into the old context of how things have been in our country. But where she's trying to move us is going to be a new context. And it's not going to be the one that the majority of us are going to be pleased with.
Well, that's all I have to say on that. Don't vote for the liar. I'm going for the felon. 2024 be more.
Talk less.
We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.